Hello YouTube, it's Tony. So today I'll be counting down the top 10 best Ironman unlocks for 2018. Inspired by Ravlar in 2017, I decided to make an updated version of this, as there are so many updates in this game since then. Most of these unlocks will be quests and skill based, and I have a pretty strict criteria. The first criteria is that the unlocks must benefit Ironman more than the main accounts. For example, things like Soul Split, Overloads, or even the tier 90 weapons. The second criteria is that I'm ranking them based on the impact from the moment you unlock them. So things like long-term investments are, I'm gonna put them either last or it might not even make the top 10. Without further ado, let's get started. At number 10, we have Temple Tracking. This requires the Darkness of Hallowvale quest complete. You'll get a lot of skilling resources, and most notably the bowstring, the watermelon seeds, the silver bars, and even the construction and lumberjack outfit. It's really amazing for starting supplies early on. Unfortunately, due to many updates, it's not as useful as it once was. However, it is nice that it made the top 10. At number 9, we have Managing Miscellanea. So it is the best way to get decent resources. I also suggest you complete the Royal Trouble quests, because this will increase the resource cap even further. The primary resource for this are mahogany logs for construction. Then we have maple logs, which are for invention, fire making, and fletching. Now the other ones you can include are coal, which is for Artisan's Workshop. While it does give you early impact, and yes, it's nice to unlock it as soon as possible. However, sometimes you gotta wait days or even weeks to get a good supply of these resources. Coming in at number 8, we have Invention, and I actually decided to group this with 95 Divination. However, unlocking the skill does have several benefits as a whole. Even early on, it's still pretty okay as well, because you can make the elite skilling outfits and access the early perks. On top of that, disassembling items can free you up a lot of bank space. When I first unlocked this skill, I got rid of 100 bank spaces worth of items. The reason I suggest 95 Divination is that incandescent energies require the fewest amount of energy, meaning that you get fastest charges per hour. At number 7, we have player-owned farms, and the tutorial only takes you under 5 minutes. So it unlocks you the ability to get player-owned farm animals from drops, which obviously it's best to unlock it as soon as possible. Just like Invention, it also frees up a lot of bank space for things like low-level food, seeds, and fruit. It adds a really dynamic method when it comes to farming training, and it can be very fun and engaging. Now the farming XP isn't actually very bad for what it offers. I would say this is a much more immediate impact compared to player-owned ports, both of which are very good investments to have. Now the ingredients from the animals in the long term are really useful in many ways, especially for the elite skilling potions. Number 6, Unlocking Prif. While most of this content is pretty high level, but there is still some good content for newcomers in Prif. The first one are the harps. As a crafting method, it's not only AFK, but it also requires no resources. Secondly, we have the Umlaut Voices Saren, and it offers you so many benefits from it. Not only do you save money, resources, and charms, but it's also a faster way to infuse pouches compared to running to Taverley and then running back and forth to the bank. Obviously you can sell the chop method to Taverley, but that's overly expensive, especially for Ironman characters. Then we also have the Heaven Prayer, which are for cleansing crystals, and even the harmonized soft clay for the urns. Then at number 5, we have Dungeoneering rewards. The best rewards to go after are the Charming Imp, the Scroll of Cleansing, and the Bone Crusher. While they do cost a lot of tokens, especially the Charming Imp, but token farming actually makes this a lot easier. By unlocking this, not only does this make combat and slayer training easier and more efficient, but it also makes it so that the floor is much cleaner, so that way you can loot the drops underneath. The Scroll of Cleansing itself does make Herblore a lot easier because obviously Herblore supplies are pretty limited on Ironman mode. At number 4, we have MENAPHOS. While the Jack of Spades questline isn't very long, but trust me, it's very useful. There are really a lot of benefits for mid and low level players. The first one being MENAPHOS fishing and cooking. Then we have the concentrated sandstone and the acacia trees, which are pretty good mid-level content. Last but not least, we have the corrupted scarabs. And yes, it's a very amazing way to make money at the low levels, and it offers you pretty decent Slayer XP as well. For this reason, I've actually ranked it very high compared to the others, because really, making money at low levels is very scarce, and you don't want to sacrifice too much efficiency out of this. I've done corrupted scarabs a lot when I was a low or mid-level Ironman. Then again, there's also several high-level content you can unlock in MENAPHOS, things like Soul Altar or the Slayer dungeons. At number 3, we have the Penguins. Now the Penguin Quest series is fairly long and there are a few mid-level requirements. However, by completing Back to the Freezer, it makes the weekly XP even more rewarding. So exploring the penguins itself, I believe, takes maybe 15 minutes or so. Now there is a website that tracks down penguins live, and I'll leave that link in the description. This was actually among the first few major goals I went after, because really, without that, it would have probably taken me months to get 80 herb lore. Well, unless I get Jack of Trades of course, but still. Coming in at number 2, we have Vanquish. This is a new tier 75 weapon, and you can switch it across all combat styles. It is unlocked at 150 quest points in the quest point shop. Some of you might think, oh, it's a lot of quest points, right Tony? Well, my friend actually got 200 quest points on a fresh new Ironman, and it only took him 4 days or so. I find this much easier than going for Blisterwood because obviously that requires a lot of stats. Now don't get me wrong, the SUNSPEAR does require Blisterwood itself, but this weapon is a pretty good temp solution to that. While unlocking this, you also get hybrid armor, so essentially you can do most low level bosses with this and even some mid level bosses, while the reclaim cost is pretty expensive, but it is always kept on death. You have no idea what it's like unlocking a better weapon than before, okay? I mean really, it opens up several doors to combat and even some bossing. So last but not least, at number 1, we have the one and only SUNSPEAR. To this day, it's still the most impactful Ironman unlock. So this requires River of Blood quest complete, which is a really long quest with several requirements. For those who don't know what SUNSPEAR is, it's a tier 78 weapon that's augmentable, and you can switch it across all styles, just like the Vanquish. The weapon itself is really easy and cheap to reclaim, as it only costs you 600k. You can use this weapon at most mid-level bosses, and even some high-level bosses as well. That's not all, because Vyres is actually the most efficient way to gather herb lore supplies. Well, aside from God Wars Dungeon 2 or even some high-level bosses. Now by training at Vyres, you not only get herb lore supplies, but you also get pretty decent prayer, firemaking, and farming XP. To add icing on the cake, this is actually one of the best ways to train Invention for an Ironman character. I do have a very Ironman friendly Vyres guide, and I'll leave that link in the description. Here are a couple of honorable mentions that didn't exactly make the top 10 list, but at least this was worth mentioning anyways. The first honorable mention goes to Jack of Trades. It's very amazing daily XP, but the real problem is that it costs you loyalty points. Unfortunately, I didn't get this aura until 3 months in, after I started my Ironman character. Well, obviously if you bought Premier Club, which is coming up pretty soon, it helps a lot here, so you'll get a lot of free loyalty points this way. After that, we have the player-owned ports. To get started, you only need one level 90 skill among the port skills. The easiest 3 skills are Thieving, Runecrafting, or Dungeoneering. While it does take you a couple of months to get this started on what you want, but the investment is still very well worth it. The most sought after rewards are the Scrimshaws and the tier 85 weapons. Because of this, it's definitely worth investing as early as possible. So my third honorable mention goes to Deep Sea Fishing Traveling Merchant. This only requires you 68 fishing. While the stock is great and all, but they're mostly endgame benefits. Not to mention that early on, you probably won't have enough cash to buy the stock every day you want. The last honorable mention goes to Evil Dave's Big Day Out quest. By completing this quest, you get the Spicy Stew plus 6 level boost. Now the frequency of getting this isn't all that rare, so it's definitely helpful for completing several tasks and even unlocking overloads as early as possible. The quest itself does give you good herb lore and magic XP. Here's a trivia, this was actually the last quest I completed before ending episode 1. To conclude everything, this sums up all the best unlocks for Ironman characters. As I haven't posted my Ironman series in a while, I'm not sure when episode 24 will be out. Like, I have way too many clips that are scattered all over the place, so I gotta organize them at the same time. So yeah, thanks for watching and I hope it helps. If I missed anything, feel free to ask. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, because I'll definitely be doing more Ironman content, and of course, don't forget to follow my Ironman series.